Welcome back to Player Display, and we are going to do another retrospective. I know we just did one on the Sideshow The Dead Harbinger, and I said off of that, after size comparisons, that we might do another one based on a figure that is quite relevant this month, and that is the Sideshow Collectibles 2002 Silver Screen Edition NOSFERATU, Max Schreck, the Vampire, Count Orlok, whatever you want to call him. Just a really awesome figure. I did not acquire him recently. I actually got him, I think, just a few months before I got my apartment a few years ago. So I've actually had this guy for some time, and I've had him on display ever since I moved in, and he's one of my favorites, to say the very least. It's a really great figure. Ever since this one was released, there have been multiple other iterations of Orlok in 1/6 scale form, and also in 7-inch scale form, as we looked at with NECA's release. So there has been an evolution of Count Orlok in plastic. Still, this one's my favorite because while this one is a little bit more bare bones, the newer ones are more stylized, they're more romanticized, like they got longer ears, different tones in the flesh and all that, there's weird colors going on. This has always been my favorite one though. Very minimalistic, doesn't really have everything that you'd want a NOSFERATU to have, but it's still a really solid figure. So all that being said, let's just give it a good retrospective review. Believe it or not, I still have the box for this guy. It's a little worse for wear, but it's still a really good presentation. Over here we have simply the Vampire. I'm not sure why they didn't necessarily title him NOSFERATU. I can't imagine it was for legal issues, because I think this movie is public domain. I could be wrong. But regardless, up here, a little off camera there, but you see it has the Silver Screen Edition 12-inch figure, ages 12 and up. So they weren't too big on pinpointing a certain age for figures and the odds, I guess. Off to the side, you have Max Schreck, which I really appreciate, and that looks really good. Down here, choking hazard, don't choke on any rats. Down here, you have the original Sideshow logo, which is a little different than what we know now. It's a question mark for some reason. It's almost like the Riddler got his hands on this. Off to the side, you also have these really nice gothic flourishings with this stone building out an archway, and I think that looks very good. You got the Vampire over here, collectible figure, Silver Screen Edition, not to be mistaken with the color version. Off to the side, on here, exactly the same. On the top, also the same, with a little bit of wear. I'm not sure what's going on, but that's how I got the figure 2 years ago. Off to the back, you have a still from the film itself. You got NOSFERATU in his, or Count Orlok rather, in his final moments in the film. Zooming on in, you actually have a bio of the film itself, which is great to see, so you can pause and read if you like. I will have to do the same myself. It's been a little while since I've taken this box out of my closet. And then down here, you actually have movie credits, believe it or not. So you got NOSFERATU at the top. Down here, here are the credits, if you want to read up on them. There they are. And one little QC issue, not QC issue, it's just damage from time. This guy used to have a Velcro little notch over here to keep the box together, but obviously that's come undone. And that would have otherwise been attached to here. And then over here, you would have the figure concealed in a sheet of plastic. And here is Max Schreck as he appeared in the 1922 classic. One thing I forgot to mention about this figure is there are actually two versions of them. There is a colorized version, which comes in a more maroon color scheme in the clothing with a slightly yellow tinted flesh tone. And then you have this grayscale version, obviously meant to simulate as he'd look in the black and white versions of the film, because there are many versions of the film, because we know the history here. Bram Stoker's wife tried to destroy every single copy of the film there was. Obviously, she was unsuccessful. As a result of that, there were still some copies floating around that ultimately got compiled into as close of a definitive edition of 1922's NOSFERATU as we could get. So sometimes it's in color, sometimes it's not. Here's a grayscale version, which I believe is harder to find than the color version. This is still an outstanding figure. So let's start up here at the head sculpt, which is easily the best part of well, really any 1/6 scale figure. If you fail the head sculpt, then you fail the figure. But it looks great. What is this camera angle? Give me a second here. It definitely looks like Max Shrek. I mean, kind of hard to say too, because I mean the film is over 100 years old now, 102, I believe, and it was a little grainy, a little fuzzy. You couldn't make out all the little nooks and crannies of a human face on there, but yeah, this is what you imagine. It looks exactly like Max Shrek with all the prosthetics, the makeup, the elven ears, the long nose and everything. Really outstanding profile, very iconic, especially when perhaps silhouetted against the backdrop or something like that, like in the film. It looks really good. So you got your gray painted details everywhere, the bushy eyebrows, the lips, the fangs, the rat-like teeth. And it's just a very good color scheme throughout. I mean, lack thereof, it's not really colored, but you get what I mean. You even have a dark wash on the inside of the ears to bring out more of that sculpt work, which I think is a really interesting choice, but it definitely serves this figure well. Even along the top of the head, you'll notice a dark wash here as well. So it's not totally flat, even though it's black and white. They could have gone away with just, whoosh, let's make it gray, but now they decided to give it a little more variation. Now, the one thing I do not like about this figure, which really isn't a big deal, is the fact that he does have side eye. He is, by intention, looking to his left. And that's how the figure was made. It's not an error or anything. They just wanted him looking to the left for some reason. I mean, it doesn't look bad. The eyes look really good. It's still very, very creepy. I love how the natural shadowing casts some darkness over them, and I think that's excellent. But at the same time, he can't look this way unless you turn his head a lot, so it feels really awkward. Ooh, that's actually pretty good. But, you know, you get what I mean. I'd still prefer a figure to have the eyes pointing straight out, so it's more universal. It can go in any direction you want from that point on. Anyhow, with that being said, let's move on to the rest of the figure. Here we have the tunic. To this day, I don't know if this is a nightgown, if this is just normal formal clothing for the time. I'm really not sure. And again, this character is older than the time period he shows up in, so who knows what time period this clothing is from. But yeah, he's got those iconic buttons, rivets, going all the way down this coat. I don't know what you'd call them, but they look really nice. All individually stitched in. They cannot be undone or anything. Although if you did want to undo the jacket for whatever reason, they are pinned in with some actual live buttons in there. So you can unpin those and pin them back together. But for the sake of preserving the quality of this figure, I will not be undoing it completely. I mean, who wants to see Max Shrek in his full glory anyways? Towards the top, you also have this little black handkerchief over here, so that's pretty neat to see. And also these corners, collar that pop out from almost like a modern suit that you would be seeing. Down to the arms, similarly to the Harbinger zombie that we just looked at, sleeve and a large cuff at the end, which is pretty cool. Little multimedia here too. You got more of a soft cloth over here on the coat, and then down here it's more, I wouldn't say pleathery, but it's got this shininess to it. It's a little bit more sleek, so it's a different material, but I like that. It's pretty neat. Down here, you also got two hands, and they look very good. They are differently posed for his few, but still very strong accessories. You have one over here that's more gesturing or pointing or whatever. You could be holding his keys or picking up a rat. We'll look at those in a moment. And then we have one here that's a bit more gripping. So if you have him holding a sword. He was holding something of a sword when he was on the carriage, wasn't he? I believe. So yeah, that's something you could totally do. A lot of customizing opportunities with this figure. I mean, I wouldn't repaint him or anything like that, but if you want to give him extra gear, like his hat or something like that, then you can do that. In fact, he comes with a hat. We'll talk about that later. The one thing I did want to mention about the wrists, because this is a retrospective, we compare these older figures to newer figures, is what they did with articulating the hands. It's pretty interesting. So if you pull the sleeve up, you probably already noticed, it's a little awkward looking. You have an actual hinge and a pin coming out to meet the hand, which is on a ball socket. So that joint is just a lot more visible than it would normally be, and the hands pop out very easily. So do keep that in mind. But then again, it's not like he'd be holding a lot of accessories necessarily, so you can get away with him just having the sleeves down. It hides a joint. Really not a big deal. I mean, this is one of those few characters who can get away with just standing idly, and he does his job. I mean, if you get him straight up, then he looks just like he did in the film. So it's totally okay if the hands or certain parts of this figure aren't able to move a whole ton. Down here, you also have some pants, very standard, just done in black, nothing else to look at here. Although one thing that I found mechanically interesting is when we get down to the shoes, which are pretty nice, they got like this escalated heel down here. I don't know what's going on. The pants actually have this elastic band around the ankle portion that loop down to the heel of the shoe, which is really interesting. I don't know how necessary that is, but it's something you barely notice at all. I guess it's so that way it hides the inner workings of the body sculpt. So I don't know why they did it, but kind of ingenious. I mean, it does hide the base color of whatever flesh tone is under there. So I don't know. It's interesting. I like that. This is an over 20-year-old action figure, so did Sideshow do a good job incorporating accessories that long ago? Actually, yeah, they did a pretty decent job in my opinion. First thing we have here is a pretty unconventional, though very good-looking display base. It's not a typical, like, doll stand with a little clamp at the top. Instead, you just have a basic board with very nicely sculpted and painted stone with a tiny peg right in there. So you can actually notice at the bottom of his feet, you got 2 holes, so you can plug this into whatever hole you want, and in my experience he still stands up pretty well with this if you're not moving him around too much. But if you want to do a more extreme pose, then you might opt for a more modern figure stand, so something to keep in mind if you want to chase this figure. He also comes with this nice little nightcap over here, and it's pretty well sculpted, and it's also got a very good wash. You can see it's kind of faint, but brings out a little bit more of those wrinkles, makes it feel leathery, and it's very nice. And off to the sides, you can also notice these little indents here, and that is for the ears, so it kind of keys onto his head. So if you bring him in there, and you gotta find the right angle. I think it's this way, or would it be better the other way around? I honestly don't use the hat personally. Oh, it looks like the shorter part of the bottom of the hat goes in the front. And you can saw that on. Here, I'm sorry. Let's move up a little bit. There you go. Now he's got his cap. So, pretty cool accessory. Not my preference. I always imagine him with the big old bald head, so that's what I'll be going with. He also comes with a nice and satisfying jangly set of keys right here, which I really do like. Interestingly, it's a real chain, but it's not real metal or die cast on the keys. They are actually done in a plastic, similarly to what we saw with the NECA version. So, yeah, pretty good looking keys. All of them are different. They all have different little notches on there. Actually, that might not be true. Are these two the same? There might be like 2 of each or something like that. But yeah, it seems like those two are the same. So yeah, some are same, some are different, but looks good. I dig these a lot. This dude also comes with 3 differently sculpted rats, because of course bats have nothing to do with this particular bootlegged version of Dracula. Instead, you have these little guys, and they are also very fun to play around with. They're just for sitting around his base. I mean, if you want to get the figure stand out and then prop them on top, around his feet, they look pretty nice, and it just gives a little bit more atmosphere to this figure. So, yeah, really nice. You got one that's kind of crawling after you, one that's standing up, and one that's also doing a little bit of a shimmy. So, very good. And all of them do share this similar dry brush work that helps to bring out the fur detail a little bit more. You do have a bonus accessory over here. The newer figures actually do have an official version of this, but I wanted to create that letter that he holds by his face at a certain point in the film. So I did my very best to replicate all the little symbols and everything on there by hand. I didn't do a perfect job. I wasn't able to get everything on there, but I don't know, it was just a piece I really wanted this figure to have. And one fun trivia fact about this movie, amongst many really fun trivia facts, is that F.W. Murnau, he was an occultist, and it's thought that the symbols on this letter was actually from whatever his beliefs were. So, pretty interesting. I have no idea what these mean, but it just adds to the creepy atmosphere of the movie in general. Since Count Orlock's rocking with the basic base body and everything here is soft goods, we're going to spend very little time on articulation, and also he's a guy you don't want moving around too much. But on the head sculpt, it's there. He's got a really good tilt, got some down, great amount down actually. Actually just noticing the lack of paint on the base neck, so that's interesting. Another trope carried on from the Harbinger zombie that we just looked at. Also got some very good up. The arms, they can do all their swiveling. Is there a butterfly joint? I don't think they had butterfly joints yet. No, that is not a butterfly joint. But he's got a swivel, double-jointed elbows that don't come all the way in, but that's fine. As for their wrists, we kind of talked about that. It's the same on both of them. They got a swivel, and then they got a hinge that allows them to go up and down, but of course you can rotate the hand to get some various different options from each hand, so that's very nice to see. And the torso, I'm not too sure, I haven't played with it much, but oh wow, a lot weighs down, and a good amount back, although there's almost this springiness you could see. Like if I hold it here and let go of it, it kind of just springs back, which is kind of interesting. So don't know what's going on there. There might be some bands or springs on the inside of this body. Not really sure. As for legs, you can do the splits. Want to be careful though, because he is wearing pants after all. Little forward, little back. Don't need more than that. Double jointed knees. Could probably go a little further than that, but I'm not going to stress it any more than that. As for the feet, though, I'm actually not too sure. It might be a little awkward because of that elastic band we have. Looks like we got a tad back, better amount forward. No rocker, which is a rarity on this channel, but every now and then it happens. So no rocker at all, but then again, this guy isn't going to be doing a Spider-Man stance or anything like that, so that's okay. This figure shows its age, but it makes up for that in aesthetics and the fact that this is a character who, by nature, isn't supposed to move around a whole ton. This we just use this guy with size comparisons with the Harbinger, where we pretty much figured out he's a standard 12-inch height 4/1/6 scale figure. I'm just going to bring out Star Wars: The Black Series, Quash, and Mechamuck!
A vampire! I shall kill it!
Man, you can't just kill a vampire with a sword, you know. You need, like, John Williams or something.
What?
You know, because he did a binary sunset.
Oh.
I did a funny. Oh, well, surely your sword can kill those dudes, right?
Rats! Rats! Rats!
Some hero are you.
As we come to final thoughts on this figure, I am just remembering how difficult it is to actually stand this guy. It's for a variety of reasons. Firstly, the joints and the ankle are actually quite loose. I don't even think they're really joints at all. It's just simply a ball and a socket, so it's nothing that special. As a result of that, and also the stand that we're working with, sometimes it just takes a little tap, and then suddenly he just goes timber and falls flat on his face. Like, I don't think it's that bright in here. You can't be suffering that much, but whatever. And then we can also look here towards the bottom, and you can see what it's like for him to be on the base itself, surrounded by his rat friends over there. I tried getting him on the turntable to wrap up this video, but he wasn't having it. He kept falling over, so I just gave up. But for now, here is a pretty basic standard pose for him, holding the keys, wearing the hat, the whole shebang. Oop, I tapped him. You okay? He's okay. Yeah, great. And I also got this little letter here that you can also put into his fingers with a little bit of effort. Something like that. I don't know. You know, I can screw around with that if I wanted to, but you know, let's do that together as I say final thoughts on this figure. It is great. I really do love it. Although, like the movie, it does show its age. I mean, naturally, you're going to have some articulation, I wouldn't say problems, just because this was the standard at the time, but now, like, when you look at modern figures, you're seeing current joints and everything. You're seeing maybe a better quality cloth. This cloth feels like it could be a little bit straggly over time and might fray a little bit if handled roughly. It is very cozy though. It's very soft. I wouldn't mind a blanket being made out of this. Also, the stand situation is a little bit irritating. Like, it's a nice stand and all, but because of this guy's age, it does leave him craning a little bit back and forth, so it's a little difficult to deal with. You might want to opt for getting more modern crab claw stand or a crotch stand or something like that for this particular figure. But aside from him being able to stand, no pun intended, he holds up. It's a very good looking figure. It looks like Max Shrek, and the black and white motif is a bonus. If you don't prefer that, there's a more common color variant, which you can also get. But as I said before in previous videos, Nosferatu is one of those characters who I always feel like should be depicted in black and white. That's what adds to the mysterious air about him, along with a whole lot of other things. He's just an absolute creeper, and that's why we love him. Also, of course, really looking forward to the new Eggers movie that's coming out this month. I do plan on seeing that. And I also plan on getting the popcorn bucket, which I imagine you could lie this figure inside of if it's big enough. So I would really love to see how that works. If I am able to get a hold on that popcorn bucket, we will review it in respect to this figure and see if they're able to work together. I think that would lead to some really interesting display options. I I have no idea what to expect. It'll be worth a little more than the standard ticket, but I think it'll be worth it. So we'll check that out. But anyways, that is pretty much it for this little retrospective. Whoa, there's his keys. If you enjoyed them, please, as per usual, be sure to
Like, comment,
Ring the bell to be notified of our latest arrivals. And subscribe.
Yeah, hi, Mechabug here. If you want to see more from Pod Guy, then please be sure to check out the Pod Plays channel down in the description for some Let's Plays. And if you want to support the channel a bit too, you also got the Pod Patreon, which is down in the description as well. See you around, folks!
Thank you guys very much for watching. Rock on, and I will see you all later.